walking calmly. So I just stop and I just take 2 steps back. I just back up and just stand there and look at him. And he looked at me for a second and he put his head down, walked the rest of the way across that pasture and walked up to me. And I calmly just caught him and never a word, and it was all good. I have found over the years that anytime things are getting a little bit out of hand with horses, probably the first thing you need to do is whatever it is you're doing, you need to stop. And you just need to take a step back. I posted a post on Instagram, I don't know, 2 or 3 days ago. If you're driving your truck on ice and your tires break traction, take your foot off the gas. Now, after several years in Alaska and driving in Wyoming and all over the place, what people get in trouble from on ice is when they start sliding, they start slipping, they hit that gas. Or even worse, they hit the brakes. When what you need to do is you need to let off the gas, as long as the situation allows it. Let off the gas, let off the brakes, and just let things run their natural course. And let things, all of the pressure that's being exerted on the situation is just making the situation worse. So just let off. Back up and chill and get things back under control. Now there's a movement today in this circle of men's, bit of breeze out there. I had cracked the door and it's blowing open, and I think we'll be all right. I don't think it's too disturbing. In this circle of wisdom and men's betterment and helping young men and whatnot, and I've watched it, and it's gotten to the point that I don't agree with it. I think it's creating, in some situations, more problems than it's solving. And that's this hustle culture. If things aren't going the way they should be going, you need to hit it harder. You need to spend more time. You can sleep when you're dead. You've got this, and you need to be working out, or you need to be making sales calls, or you need to be slamming and going, and you need to be, and a lot of guys, they're in life, your wheels have broken traction, and you're just spinning, and you got somebody on the sideline yelling at you, go harder, go harder. Well, that's wrong. All right. You've got a young wild horse, metaphorically speaking, that is broken loose in your life, and everybody has snatched up halters and they're running after it as hard as they can. And they're just saying, go harder, go harder, go harder. And it's wrong. It's not wise. It's not wise. All right. If you stop some of the stuff, if you'll actually just stop and think about it, it's just positively ludicrous. Okay. But everybody needs to make a mark. All these guys, they need to make a mark. So they need to come up with something the others don't have. And they're like, look, we've got this. We have this new insight. We've got this. This is my deal. And I have the answer for you. So if you want to make a lot of money, what you got to do is you got to have 6-pack abs, or I'm going to fire you. I'm going to kick you out. How many of the smartest men on this planet, how many of the richest men on this planet have 6-pack abs? It has nothing to do with the equation. It has nothing to do with it. Now, there is something to be said for not being lazy. Something to be said to help those who are just can't drag themselves up out of the swamp. All right, I understand that, but we have to be balanced. And listen, the answer is not always go harder. Going hard might be what caused you to lose traction in the first place. A lot of times, too much speed on ice, too much speed in the course of a change of direction, that's what will cause you to spin out. Sometimes the answer is take a step back, take your foot off the gas, take your foot off the brake. Stop in the pasture and take a step back away from that horse that's running from everybody who's saying, go harder, go harder, go harder. And they're running away from it. And sometimes the things that is eluding you in life are eluding you in life because you go harder. Because you're saying, go harder. That's the answer. That's what I need to do. I need to run harder. I need to hustle. I need to hustle. I need to hustle. Well, sometimes it's like fishing. Sometimes it's like fishing. The more you get out there and splash around and move and create chaos, the less fish you're going to catch. The thing about hunting is you get up in that tree stand, or you get in that blind, or you get in that thicket, and you be still and you be quiet. There's a time for spotting and stalking, but there's also a time for just being still and for glassing and for figuring things out. And so I just want to encourage you fellas today who are out there killing yourself because some wannabe on the internet has come up with a new thing and says, look, not only do you have to learn this, and not only do you have to make a living, and not only do you have to take care of the family that you already have, and not only do you have to pay off your credit cards and pay off your deals and pay off your car, but dang it, you got to get a six-pack ab too, or otherwise you're a complete, absolute failure in life. Set that stuff down and walk away. Walk away. Take your foot off the gas. Now, there's a time to put your foot on the gas, but I guess that's what wisdom is, isn't it? Wisdom is knowing when to speed up. Wisdom is knowing when to slow down. Wisdom is knowing when to get out there and lay a hold on something and get a job done. Wisdom is knowing when to stop and sit down and have a cup of coffee and a cigar and to think and to contemplate. I've said this before. Abraham Lincoln said if he was given 4 hours to chop down a tree with an axe, he'd spend 3 of those hours sharpening the axe. Well, if you're in running all the time, next thing, until you get 6 hours sleep, and the rest of the time your feet hit the floor, you're going, when are you sharpening your axe? When are you stopping and sitting down and looking down the road and seeing which way that road goes and seeing where it might end up? There's no one answer for everything. And I hate to see these guys that are charging you money so they can kill you. These men are not wise. They might be wealthy and they might have 6-pack abs, but they don't walk in your shoes and they are not wise. Hustling is not always the answer, and wisdom is knowing the difference. If I have a choice of whether you are going to be successful by this world's standards, or you are going to be at peace and wise, I'd rather you be at peace and wise. All right? So I just want to encourage you this morning. I had a young man come up to me in Texas 3 or 4 weeks ago when I was down there. He recognized me. and he asked me, he said, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm doing this and I'm just so, can you give me any advice? I said, how old are you? I think he said he was 23 or 24. I said, do you have a job? He said, yes, I have a job. And I said, you're working? He said, yes. So you're learning? He said, yeah. I said, my advice to you is just chill. You'll never be 24 again. You will never be 24 again. Work your job. Be a responsible adult. Learn, grow, and mature. But chill. Chill. All right? You need to start asking yourself in life when things come up, is this wise? Is this wise? Not is it smart, because what is smart is not always what is wise. Wisdom is what you do with what is smart. All right? So, I don't know. I don't know about this hustle business. Take your foot off the gas. Take a step back away from that runaway colt and see if maybe you don't get a little further, a little faster, with a little less anxiety. Might work out better for you. All right? Hope you guys have a good day, and we'll catch you next time. Good morning. Dwayne here, Tack Room Bible Talk. In the tack room. I actually went outside. It's a beautiful day today, and I was going to record outside. I'm up here on the new farm. But this is the year. This year the cicadas are out now, and so it just seems so funny. Seems like it's always something. But I went out to record, and the din of the humming of the cicadas just drove the microphone crazy. So I came back in here, and just gonna talk with you in here. I got another the Tabernacle by, and I said it wrong last time. I said my father, but Tabernacle's put out by Foundation Cigars, and I should have fired up one of mine. We are been talking with the guys in Florida. We're getting the bands done now, and Oak and Iron cigars, our own cigars. The website we're hoping to launch the end of May here, so a couple weeks away. We'll have, I believe, 4 different blends to start with, and so we're very excited about that. I should have fired up one of them this morning, but I hadn't had this one in a couple days, and so I grabbed this first, and so here we are. If you've been following me at all, you know that I'm a strong proponent of reading. Okay? Reading is important. Reading is where we gain ideas. Reading is where we experience things that we may not can experience where we're at. Reading is where we are introduced to concepts that those around us in person may not be able to introduce us to. But I have come to a bit more of a refined viewpoint on reading lately. There are 3 types of men. Okay, that's a broad brush, but there's 3 types of men in this area that we need to consider. All right, there's the man that does, the man who goes and does deeds. Okay, maybe you don't write about it. So, and you take any great deed throughout history. We have no writings that I'm aware of by Genghis Khan. We have no writings from Leif Erikson. We have no writings from Alexander the Great. All right, but these are men who went and did. Then we have men who go and do and then write about it. Great men. Now, whether you consider what they did great or whether you consider them good men or not, it's irrelevant at this point for what we're talking about. Okay, great men who wrote about it and wrote great things based on their great deeds and the things they learned in those great deeds. And then you have the third sad kind. You have men who never go anywhere. Men who never do anything. Men who never accomplish anything. Oh, but they love the sound of words. And they're intellectuals. They never do anything, but they write thoughts. Thoughts that are based mostly on the thoughts of other people that they have read. And they're constantly talking about what they've learned from some book they read. The intellectual. Now, there are things that we can learn from anybody. But you know, the man who does and writes, that's a man who learns from life. That's a man who actually gains life wisdom. Now, who would we put in that category? Well, definitely Marcus Aurelius. All right. Would I consider Marcus Aurelius a good moral man based on what I've read of him in history? No, I would not. But that does not mean he wasn't a good man. And that does not mean that he didn't have a lot of truth and understanding in a lot of areas. But the things that he came up with wasn't just from reading. He lived life. He built things. Some of it, he built it brutally. But he wasn't a soft intellectual sitting in chair just thinking thoughts and spend his whole existence propagating thoughts that he got from other thinking men. Okay? Teddy Roosevelt. I have several books by Teddy Roosevelt. The man was a tremendous doer. And he was a tremendous writer. And his writings are worth reading. I respect him because he did and he wrote. George Washington Carver did and he wrote. You ought to read his book. Oh, I've got a copy of it here. Tour of the Prairies, I think. Tour on the Prairies. Fantastic book. But he didn't write that book sitting in a chair, drinking bourbon, dreaming up stuff he had gotten from another book. He went out and he actually did stuff and learned from it and thought about it and cogitated and understood and then put on paper his experience and his thoughts. Those are the men. Those are the men that we should read and we should follow. Now, when I say follow, let me back up. We should read, but then we should judge everything they write because all men are fallible and all men's writings are fallible. There are things that I read. I have a Teddy Roosevelt book here. What is it? Well, it's on the other end. Outdoorsman. He's got a couple of chapters in there. I'm like, that's not right. He really missed the boat on that. But he's got a lot of tremendous stuff. And his tremendous stuff comes from actually going out and lived. Okay? So he lived. Winston Churchill. Somehow today it's popular in our culture to turn Winston Churchill into a bad guy. Winston Churchill was a great man who accomplished great things. And his writings are worth reading because he did stuff and he wrote about it. Now, we lose a great deal from the great men who do great things and then didn't pass it on, didn't write about it. And so all we get about them is history written by somebody else, and that's always colored by somebody else's viewpoint. All right? But when you read, you take poetry. I love poetry, you know that. Okay? And some of my favorite poet, of course, is Longfellow. But I love Kipling. Read Kipling's life. Kipling went and did. Robert Service went and did. I really like Jack London. I like stuff that's not mainstream of Jack London's better than I do his mainstream. Everybody knows White Fang, you know. Everybody knows, not everybody, you know, people know, what was it, Captain's Courageous, but he's got some short stories that are absolutely just mind-blowing to me. But that is a man who went and lived life. Now, was he a good man? I don't think so. Was he a success? Well, he sold a lot of stuff, and then he ended his own life. So no. Do I read him? Yes, I do. Is there a tremendous amount of stuff in there worthy of being read? Yes, there is. Learn to understand and differentiate. It was, oh man, I should have looked this up. I think it was Thoreau. I think it was Thoreau who said that he could not even conceive of sitting down to write without having stood up to live first. All right. That's why there's, if I can bleed over into this area, that's why there's so many pastors in churches today that are such utter failures. They're such empty stuffed shirts. All right. Because they've never lived. They've never worked and had a job and got their hands, dirty and calloused and crusty. They've never been out in the gutter with fellow men just trying to survive. They've never dealt with stuff. They were intellectuals from the start, and they grew up religious or became religious by whatever means, and they found a way to make a living with books and with words and in air conditioning and without having to get sweaty, without having to get dirty, without having to get calluses on their hands, without having to live. So these men are words without life. There's no breath of life in the words of a man who speaks, who's never had his nose bloodied, who's never gone out and faced the reality that's out there. You can't write about facing the wild if you've never been in the wild. You can't do it honestly. There's no spirit of truth, no spirit of life in that. Unless you've been out there face to face with death in the wild, you got no business writing about it. If you want to write about it, you're perfectly fine. But you certainly can't expect us, the readers, to take it and take it serious. Can't take it serious. It's the same with intellectualism. Be aware of the man whose intellect and study comes from studying other intellect. Okay? Intellect for intellect's sake is a crutch for laziness. It's a crutch for fear. It's a crutch for cowardice. It's a crutch for not having the guts to go out there and face the reality that a lot of men face every day. No, I'd rather just sit here and read a book and talk about it. It's safer that way. It's easier that way. I sound much better